If you're somebody who's been dealing with lower back pain, disc bulges, or a disc herniation, and you're trying to get back to jiu-jitsu, well, this episode is going to be extremely valuable for you. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Josh. Today's episode is going to be about lower back pain, disc herniations, a lot of the information that you need to do, and all the things that you need to be able to understand so that you can get back on the mats without lower back pain. And I understand that if you're somebody who's been dealing with this type of back pain, it's not fun, it's uncomfortable, there's a lot of conflicting things out on the internet. And on top of that, not a lot of practitioners or a lot of people out there who are medical providers understand the sport of jiu-jitsu, and they don't understand what it's going to take to get you back to that level. So in this episode, we're going to really cover it, and we're going to dive deep into the things that need to happen for you to get back on those mats. Before we dive into anything else, it's really important to understand how disc compression actually happens. And when it comes to jiu-jitsu or athletes in general, most of this time, it's usually as a repetitive strain and it occurs over time. So the constant impacts, the kind of stacking, the takedowns, the compressive loads, if we're doing inversion, getting stacked like this can have a huge impact onto your spine, and it can cause compression into the spine. In addition to that compression, it's really important to note that things like sitting and the things that happen from a daily repetitive strain like improper weightlifting or improper mechanics, all of this stuff can contribute. It just happens that a lot of us tend to blame a single event where maybe a guy side smashed us really hard, maybe we got compressed, maybe something happened when we did inversion. A lot of times we tend to blame a single event when it ends up being recurrent over time. The truth is that disc herniations, they can occur from one traumatic incident, and they can be very likely correlated with one single activity, but the truth is that they tend to happen over time, and they don't happen just like over one single incident. So if you've been dealing with disc compression or disc herniations, you might notice a few signs and symptoms, and that can be a lot of pain with bending and twisting, bending forward, trying to round your back. Maybe if you're in jiu-jitsu guard or you get stacked, or you feel a lot of tightness into the lower back. It can even happen completely across the back. It could be on one side of the back. Heck, you could even have numbness or tingling going down to the leg. And if you don't have that numbness and tingling, it may even feel like one leg is tighter than the other. No matter what you do, no matter how many times you stretch it, it just doesn't seem to go away. These are some of the symptoms. And what that really means is that we can be getting compression from that disc. It could be going down into the spine. Heck, it could even go onto that nerve just like that. And that's what can cause some pain that can go down the leg. And if you feel numbness, tingling, weakness, these are indications that you could be having a herniation, and it could be different from a disc bulge. Now, briefly talking about the differences between a disc bulge versus a disc herniation, we can get into a lot of complexities, but basically a disc bulges backwards the way I showed you here, but it doesn't herniate or protrude through that, and it doesn't leak out. A herniation tends to be a little bit more painful, there's a lot more inflammation, and it can cause numbness and tingling going down. Now, these are two basic things that can happen. Of course, you need to be assessed properly, and of course, there are a lot of other symptoms that can happen, but these are basically the main differences between a disc bulge and a disc herniation. If you've been doing jiu-jitsu for a little while, there is more evidence that those people who have been doing jiu-jitsu for a longer period of time have an increase in lower back pain. Meaning, the longer you've been doing jiu-jitsu, the more likelihood you're going to develop lower back pain, disc bulges, and disc herniation. Now, a big question you'll ask is, do disc herniations heal? Yes, they do. There's actually an overwhelming percentage of herniations that actually spontaneously reabsorb, which really means that over time, you can actually reabsorb these up to 100%. Sometimes they don't reabsorb 100%, sometimes they do, but if you put your body into the right mechanics, you do some decompression exercises, you do some rehab, there is a greater likelihood that you can reabsorb these discs not only faster, but have less pain while you're going in your rehab, and of course, return to the mats faster. That's all what rehab is about. It's not about stopping this injury from happening because you're already behind the 8 ball. It's about getting you back on the mats and getting you as healthy as possible as soon as possible so that you can get back on the mats and have fun and do jiu-jitsu and not let this lower back pain plague you and stop you from doing the things that you love. So you probably are asking, what can you do to help your lower back pain and disc herniations heal as fast as possible? There are so many different exercises, but the first thing you need to start noticing is you got to stop doing things that irritate it. This might be modifying jiu-jitsu, it might be stop playing inverted guard, it might have to do other things, but if your spine is taking damage, if you're having positive MRIs and you're having positive symptoms that correlate with these MRIs, it's really important that you need to take a step back and reduce the pain and reduce the inflammation. This means that if you're a 7 out of 10, we want to get you to a 5. If you're at a 5 out of 10, we need you to get to a consistently 3 or 4 out of 10 pain so that you can manage your pain better. Once you're able to manage your pain a lot better, then we can go into more rehab. So one of my favorite exercises when it comes to relieving pain is what we call Mackenzie extension. So all you're going to do is lay onto your belly and you're going to just do a press up just like this. You're going to relax your hips and you're going to press up into your belly just like this. And you don't have to go all the way up like this. I think a lot of misconception is there where people are pushing like this and they're straining their low back. What you really want to do is relax your hip and pelvis on the floor, and you just want to do a slight little press up, hold for a second or two, come back. If that is too intense for you, you can do this position where your elbows are down, or you can even just kind of relax a little bit further into that and holding this for 20 or 30 seconds. Well, you're going to basically do this every other day until you can get your pain to go down a little bit. Maybe you'll do it, every few days. Maybe you'll do it every day for the first couple of days, and then you'll start to wean this off as you start to feel better. But doing this is designed to help decompress the disc and relax it. When you get out of this position, you're going to roll to your side and you push yourself up so that this way you don't strain your low back. This is going to be really beneficial to not only decompressing the disc, but when you come out of that position, you also got to come out of that position without irritating that spine as well. One of the best exercises that I like to introduce after we get out of pain is the hip hinge. This is super important for jiu-jitsu because we're always bending forward, we're always in this position. Not only does it help jiu-jitsu, but it helps treat and train your mechanics. So when you're doing shots, when you're doing guard, whatever you're doing, this is going to be really beneficial. Most people, what they do is when they have pain, they bend down, they touch their toes, they feel numbness, they feel tingling, it hurts to bend forward, and they end up just bending like this all day long, especially if you're somebody who sits for a long time. It's really important to learn how to use our hips. Jiu-jitsu is a very hip-dominant sport with a lot of strength and a lot of mobility. And if you don't have that strength or mobility, you are going to put it onto your spine and you're going to have a bigger problem. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put a wooden dowel onto our sacrum, our mid-back, and our neck, and we're going to hinge at our hips. We're not going to spin like this. We're going to hinge at our hips. Our butt is going to slide back, and we're going to stay in this nice position just like this, retraining our hips and getting our spine into the right posture. If we start to bend too far forward or bend too far back, we're going to have bigger problems and we're going to end up using this hip hinge wrong. Got to remember, the strength and the power comes from the hips. If you retrain the hips, you can help the low back. And if you don't train those hips, you're going to be at a severe disadvantage, not only for your rehab for your lower back, but in jiu-jitsu when you do come back as well. So it's really important. You fix the hips, you fix the spine together. So in addition to those exercises that I just mentioned, you're probably wondering what else can you do to help your lower back pain and to help recover. Of course, we just touched on certain things, but you really want to focus on your hips. The hips tend to be the key in terms of fixing the lower back. If you learn how to mobilize the hips and stabilize the spine, aka learning core strengthening, planks, side planks, These are a great way and a starter pack to get you started so that you can get back on the mats. Of course, you're going to eventually need to strengthen and do sport specific movements, things like high velocity movements, rotational movements, all these things. But if your spine doesn't know how to be stable, and if you don't know how to control the spine, and you don't know how to get out of bad positions in jiu-jitsu, which is another skill in itself, you're going to constantly cause more irritation and more pain into your lower back. This is really, really important that not only you do those first things that I just recommended, the Mackenzie press up or the pain relief extension, as well as the hip hinge. Those are a great starter pack. But if you don't master those, if you don't move on to something that is more stability based and really strengthens the core, you're going to have a big problem, especially when it comes to getting back on the mats. Hey, don't forget to download our free lower back pain guide. This guide has some of the best exercises, mobility, and strength training drills and exercises that you need so that you can help stabilize your spine and get back on the mats as soon as possible. Also, as a quick bonus, guys, if you are having a lot of pain when you're getting up and down, seated to standing, especially getting out of bed in the morning, there's one simple and easy thing you can do. Simply, all you have to do is before you get started is go from side to side, do a little windshield wipers, and go side to side on your back. Once you do that, you go onto your side and you push yourself to get up. This is much better than getting up like this and doing a violent sit-up or like a hip bump or a Kimura bump. When you do a lot of that hip flexion or hip bumping and bending forward aggressively, like sit-ups, you're really adding a lot of compression to the spine and you're adding a lot of pressure to the disc that can eventually pinch that nerve. So if you start the day off on a good note and you reduce the irritation, the inflammation, the pain, the numbness, the tingling, and you start that off on the day one or the beginning of the day, you're going to likely have a much better day, and that's going to translate into reduced inflammation, which is then going to translate in reduced pain and getting you back healthier faster. So if you found this episode really useful, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you download that free low back pain guide. It's really going to help you, especially if you're a jiu-jitsu athlete looking to get back on the mats.